Choosing a Home by ginnyrules27. Chapter 45. This is an interesting one. Freddy grimaced as he experienced his daily torment. Time was immaterial in Tartarus, but at the same time he knew exactly how many days had gone by since that little witch had burned him alive. The worst part was he hadn't heard any news about Audrey. One would think that if he was unfairly punished, Mal would do the same to Audrey, make an example of both of her enemies in a way. But no, nothing. But Hades hadn't been kidding when he told Freddy he'd be experiencing a new torment every day. He had been tied to a stake and lit on fire, only to wake up the next day and find himself in the middle of the ocean, impaled on a ship. Those were the easy days, when he knew almost what to expect, from knowing the histories of the Isle residents. Though he wasn't going to lie, he still wasn't a fan of falling off Beast's castle a la Gaston, and he'd done it 5 times so far. But his least favourite torment was when he was forced to play servant to copies of Mal, Uma, Harry and Jay. Sometimes Hades would throw in Evie, Henry or even Claudine in there, just to make that torture worse. Even Celia or the little Tremaine brat would show up at times. They'd give him orders, and he'd have no choice but to comply. "Frederick," the copy of Evie sang tauntingly, breaking Freddy out of his thoughts. He didn't know how Hades learned how much Freddy loathed his first full name, but somehow the false god had managed it, and added it to Freddy's torment. There wasn't a punishment Freddy had encountered where he hadn't heard his first full name. "Yes, mistress," Freddy choked out, despite his attempts to resist. He had no choice in this matter. "Model my new clothes for me." The ones you just made?" Would it be too much to hope that she actually made clothes for men this time? He thought. "Did I stutter?" the copy of Evie said with a sly smirk, and Freddy felt his hopes get dashed into 1,000 pieces, as she held up what was clearly looking like a blouse. Freddy cursed the fact that he even knew the term now from the countless times the copies had made a model for him. "I'm sure Mal would want to know about your hesitation. She's been yearning for another chance at fireball practice." Freddy sighed. "Yes, mistress. I'll model your new clothes for you." "Oh, but you don't sound enthused to do it, Frederick. I made a nice frilly bright pink skirt for you to show to Harry, Jay, Mal, Uma and myself. After all, what was you always said? Women should be seen and not heard. Well, you'll certainly be seen in that skirt, that's for sure. Besides, all that black you wear is just so dreary. You need some more colour in your wardrobe." "God, if you can hear me, what did I do to deserve this torment? I was just following your word. If anything, the sinners before me should be the one experiencing this hell," Freddy thought. "Evie, your modelling will have to hold off for a moment," the copy of Jay said, and Freddy would never admit this, but he'd never been more thankful to see Jay in his life. Or death. "Harry needs a sparring partner, and he's demanding it be Frederick." Forget all thankful feelings. Jay, you're the scourge of the earth, Freddy thought. "You heard Jay, Frederick," copy Evie said, the smirk still on her face. "And hey, if Harry roughs you up too bad, I can always try some new makeup looks to cover up the bruises I'm sure are coming your way." "Yes, mistress." "Off you go," copy Evie said, waving her hand, and Freddy sighed, following Jay as his theme had a mind of his own. Why was it that out of all the copies, Evie was the one Freddy loathed dealing with the most? Uma was predictable, almost pleasant to deal with. If one found dealing with witches pleasant, that was. As was Harry. If Freddy's daily torment dealt with those two, it was mainly a non-stop sparring. an activity he never seemed to get good at no matter how many times he was forced into it. Mal always seemed bored whenever it was her turn to torment Freddy. 9 times out of 10 she would just throw fireballs at him, causing him to dodge. Which, of course, she always got upset if she missed him, which meant Freddy would have to be reintroduced to Mal's dragon form. Henry and Claudine were a toss-up. Freddy legitimately never knew what he was going to get if they showed up in his daily torment. The Tremaine brat always insisted on tea parties. Freddy assumed they were a Borodon thing, but Freddy had always put the work as the wait staff. Those days were spent in a garish pink room with a canopy bed and more plush toys than you could shake a stick at. He was a man from the Isle! He shouldn't have been stuck in a room that was better suited for a prissy Borodon princess than him. And the copy of the Tremaine brat always gave her plush toys that accompanied her at the tea parties the most cutesy names. And no matter what, Freddy had to repeat them. Would Mr. Snugglebug like some more tea? Oh, it looks like Sir Meowington is running out of milk. Seems like Berry Poppins needs a nice spoonful of sugar. If Freddy stammered or messed up on a name, the Tremaine brat would cry. And while the torments were different each day, they always remembered the mistakes Freddy made when the cycle came back around to the copies. Evie was always more vindictive on her days if they followed a day where he had made the Tremaine brat cry. Believe it or not, Freddy was starting to think the little brat cried on purpose now. The modelling where the frilly pink skirt had been promised that he had just gotten out of was following a day where the little brat had burst into tears because Freddy had tripped over Cocoa Puff, the golden retriever, and the Tremaine brat accused Freddy of killing the plush dog. Never mind that the plush creature was just fine after all. Nope. According to that brat, Freddy had killed the dog and therefore must be punished. Gad, Frederick. Copy Harry's Scottish accented voice brought Freddy back to the present, and he was able to catch the sword that had been thrown at him by the copy of The Nick in Time. Jay told you, I take it. I want to spar, and I need a partner. You're going to be that partner. Yes, master. Freddy nodded. At least it's not modelling that damned skirt Evie was talking about. Hopefully they can still get out of that. Don't be too rough on him, Harry. Claudine's voice called out, and Freddy turned to see a copy of his half-sister sitting in the stands, lounging as if the idea of the upcoming spa only half interested her. After all, Evie said she wanted to put on a fashion show later, and she can't do that without her favourite model. Can she, Frederick? No, she can't, Captain. Oh yeah, that had been an interesting discovery. While he had been forced to call the copies of Mal, Evie, Harry, Jay, Uma, and even Celia and the Tremaine brat Master or Mistress, he had no choice but to call Claudine Captain. Good answer, the copy of Claudine said with a smirk. That's all the copies ever did, was smirk at him, as if he was a partially amusing joke to them, not someone to take seriously. Remember, Frederick, you may have thought that you were hot stuff when you were living, but at the end, you got the burial you deserved. A pirate's burial at sea. If my mother hadn't been weak enough to die in birth, I wouldn't have had to deal with you! Freddy spat, somehow forcing himself to say the full sentence. Whenever he tried to argue with one of the copies, it never worked. He always sounded like he was agreeing with them. If he did manage to disagree, he found that it was because Hades had thought up another torment that he'd wanted to try for Freddy. And judging by the look on Claudine's face, that was the case here. Harry, hold on a minute before you spar, Frederick, the copy of Claudine said as she got up from the stands. Frederick, come with me. Yes, Captain. Oh, what a good deckhand's son you are. Claudine said, tauntingly cooing at him as they made their way to a chair and television set. Sit! Freddie immediately sat in the chair and grimaced as he was tied to it. Oh, are the ropes too tight? Claudine asked as Freddie winced slightly on reflex. Good. Enjoy the show, Frederick. Uh-huh? Freddie asked, but Claudine walked away just as the television sat in front of him clicked on.
Hello, Freddie,
Hades said with a smirk, but Freddie nearly fainted in relief of someone not using his dreaded full first name.
Oh yes, you might be wondering why I'm not using your full first name. Well, unlike you, I have a beautiful wife to spend time with, and the extra letters that make up your first full name take up precious time. I'm not trading time with my wife for talking to you. See, I normally don't do this, but I thought I'd show you just what you're missing on Earth. The life you can no longer live.
Before Freddie could say anything more, the television began to flip through scenes before him, as if Freddie was going through a photo album. At first he saw the aisle, saw Lachlan, Shayla and Strat being pushed around by Zevon. Serves the little traitors right, Freddie thought, even as his blood boiled at Zevon, of all people, being able to push his gang around. The next bit of the aisle he got to see were the remaining rats just lounging around the aisle, strutting around like they owned it. There were fewer rats than there were when Freddie walked the earth. Must have jumped ship to Borodon. Freddie's fists clenched as he saw Dustin proudly displaying his sin for the whole aisle to see, as he walked hand in hand with Jace Baden of all people. You weren't so brave when I was alive, were you, Dustin? God, what a joke you truly are! And you call yourself a kid of the aisle? Freddie thought with a scoff. But he froze as he saw the next few scenes. A miniature Audrey was before him, with shoulder-length hair and the same brown eyes as her mother. Even though there was no trace of him in the toddler's features, Freddie knew without a doubt that this was his daughter. His daughter that Mal was holding. His daughter that Beastie Jr. was reading to with another little girl with dark black hair that Freddie honestly couldn't care about. The book looked like a picture book of all the false gods of Olympus. It was his daughter that Henry, of all people, was holding as they swam in a pool. The little girl was wearing red and green water wings as she kicked her feet. It was his daughter that Claudine held to her as rain pelted the windows of Honeymoon Castle. His daughter that Claudine placed a light red tri-cornered hat and engaged in many duels with red and green wooden swords. Get that filth off of her! Freddie growled as he struggled to free himself from the bonds. I knew you were a traitor, Claudine, but I'd have thought you would at least teach your niece, my daughter, to follow what was right! Freddie froze, though, as he saw his daughter fall backwards after a small burst of smoke burst from her hands. His daughter had been tainted by magic. His daughter was being comforted for such devilry instead of being cast out like the sinner she was. Of course Claudine would welcome that sin. Freddie thought with a small internal scoff as he watched his half-sister hold his daughter close to her. It was disgusting. It's a shame. My only daughter. A witch.
Oh, did I not update you?
Hades' voice cut in, as if he had heard Freddie's thoughts, and without even seeing the false god's face, Freddie knew that he was smirking. That's all anyone ever did when it was in regards to him around here.
So much has changed since Mal made the world a better place by removing you from it. It's almost hard to keep track.
In the blink of an eye, Freddie could see a young babe join the images. A girl with short, dirty blonde hair and grey eyes that could only come from one source.
Mary! That's got to be Mary!
Freddie thought. Audrey and he had talked about baby names for their second child before they had stormed the honeymoon castle, and had decided on Mary if the babe was a girl, and Claude if the babe was a boy. His father deserved to have his legacy preserved in some way after all.
Meet Paige Audrey Rose,
Hades' voice said, as the same sort of images flashed past Freddie's eyes. Well, minus the sword fighting, as the blonde couldn't even walk. Freddie stared in horror as his daughters were constantly shown sin. He could hear the mini Audrey being introduced to those false gods of Olympus, and watched in fury as she called them Lord and Lady. He pressed against the ropes, as if to escape, but the ropes only tightened with every attempt.
Don't you see, Freddie?
Hades said, and Freddie could still hear the smirk in his voice.
Your name will be forgotten. Your deeds will be forgotten. And the only one who would truly mourn you is Dead herself. It will take time, of course, but soon your name will never once leave the lips of anyone in Oradon. Maybe your little sycophants will remember you, but it won't be with love. After all, you're the one who abandoned them on the Isle.
I would have come back for them! Freddie growled, lunging but unable to move due to the ropes that were now so tight they were cutting into his bare arms. They knew that!
Would you, though? They'll never know,
Hades taunted.
Now I'll let you go back to your eternal torment. But before I do, one last image for you.
Before Freddie could say anything, the television set flickered, so that Freddie could see Claudine in her wedding dress, standing at an altar next to Henry. Freddie watched in horror as she recited her vows, and after Henry recited his, the two kissed. That little traitor! She was supposed to get Henry to break his little vow, so that we could escape and crush the rats once and for all. Not develop feelings for Henry! The ropes fell to the side, and Freddie found himself being pulled from the chair.
Amo de Spa.
The copy of Harry growled.
Get up, Frederick. One can only hope you've improved since the last time we sparred.
Freddie knew he hadn't. In fact, after the 3 hours he spent sparring with the copy of Harry, Freddie was certain he'd gotten worse somehow. His bruises had bruises, and he was pretty positive Harry had meant to hit him in the face while lunging, and meant to kick him in the groin when Freddie had backing away, and that Mal had meant to throw the fireballs in his path the one time it looked like he was matching Harry in skill. This day can't end soon enough, he thought as he panted heavily after the spar, trying to stem the nosebleed from where Harry had punched him. Yes, even though he was dead, he still bled. The only good thing about the torments, they never repeat themselves. Hopefully I'll get one of the historical deaths tomorrow. Now to see if God truly has forsaken me, or if he'll make it so I can avoid modelling that blouse and skirt. But, of course, he wouldn't get out of it, because Evie had ordered him to do it, and there was no order Freddie could say no to. Oh, Frederick! The copy of the Tremaine brat sang, and Freddie had to wonder just what was so special about today that he had earned his least favourite punishments and a new one on the same day. Yes, mistress! Freddie spat out. Evie said you'll play with me before her fashion show, the copy of the Tremaine brat said, her big eyes peering up at him in innocence that Freddie knew was not there. If it was there, the brat wouldn't have been so vindictive. Of course, mistress. Whatever Mistress Evie commands. Oh, goody! The brat squealed, 'cause I have a fun new game.
Please be something I can say no to. Please be something I can say no to.
Hair salon. You could be my first customer.
Where was she even keeping that bag?
Freddie thought as the Tremaine brat brought out a bag filled with hair products that she definitely wasn't holding when she came up to him. Freddie willed himself to say no, to say that he wouldn't do it, not even if they paid him.
Sounds like fun, mistress. Maybe tomorrow I'll get to fall off Beast's castle again. At least then I can get to say no whenever I want, Freddie thought, as the Tremaine brat squealed once more before leading Freddie to his doom.
End of chapter. Hi guys, hope you enjoyed that one.
Oh boy, that was cathartic.
I'm not normally one to like when people are suffering, but sometimes it's earned. I kind of like the idea that he is constantly being tormented by all of these guys. Again, I'm not normally one to wish pain on others, but what can you do? Sometimes you need it. Anyway, you guys know the drill. Like, comment and subscribe and hit that bell to get notified whenever I upload a new video. Have a good day, night, or whatever time zone you're in. Bye my guys, girls and non-binary pals. I'll see you in another video. Take care.